And hello YouTube, this is GSmaniamsmart and I'm here on a brand new video for Gaming with GS. And haven't made a Guild Wars 2 video in a few days, been kind of busy, things happening in real life, but I do want to give you my opinion of Living World Season 3, what I thought about it, maybe summarize a few things, so be aware there are spoilers in this video, so if you have not completed the entire episode yet for Living World Season 3 Out of the Shadows, then I recommend you not to watch it if it bothers you that I go over spoilers. If not, feel free to watch. We won't go, well, I guess we'll go over a good amount of spoilers, so just be aware. And I just want to talk a little bit about what I liked, what I didn't like, if there was anything I didn't like. I thought in general, overall, this was a very well done episode. It also is longer than the typical episodes that we do get from previous seasons. And in Season 2, the episodes that were featured in that season usually had around 3 missions on average. Well, the first episode in Season 3 here gives us 6 missions, I believe. So we do have a substantial amount more content. I think it's higher quality content as well. Should there have been more to it? I mean, there could have been more to it, especially since we do have to wait like another, 2 or 3 months now for the next episode. I was hoping they'd release at least 2 episodes, but for the amount of detail and the amount of high quality content in this episode, if this basically continues for future episodes, then I think I'll be very happy, because the story in this episode was just fantastic. Character development was some of the best that I've seen in all the Living World seasons ever so far, and I just had a really fun time playing through it, paying attention to all the details, seeing all the dialogue, talking to all the NPCs, and by no stretch of the imagination was this first episode of Season 3 bug-free. I did see 1 or 2 bugs that kind of bugged me that I couldn't. I remember at one point in dialogue, I was talking to one of the NPCs, and one of the dialogue wouldn't go. Like one of the pieces of dialogue, when you selected an option from the menu to talk to an NPC, nothing happened. So maybe that was a bug. I don't know. But overall, it was such a great release from ArenaNet. We all know it starts off with Air Ceremony, and that's typically what everyone knew sort of was going to happen. That was everyone's speculation. That was my guess as well. I said that it's going to be starting very calmly and we may honor Air. And a lot of people seem to ask, why is there no ceremony for Traherne? And I think I've covered this already in a previous video, but for those of you who did not see the Reddit AMA, I guess I'll cover it here again. It seems like they didn't want to put a ceremony for Traherne because the entire world of Tyria is mourning for Traherne, and the player usually mourns for him on their own time. So that's why they didn't want to make a ceremony for it, because it's already a big deal, and it would have slowed down the story a lot if they would have to go through 2 ceremonies rather than just through 1. And Air is always more of a personal character to the player. It always seems like it's a bit more personal to you, because she's not the marshal and she's not on a duty or a wild hunt. I mean, she has her own goals and whatnot, but she always was a bit more personal, and I felt like that was the case too, and that was the response that we did get from the ArenaNet developers, so I can't complain. It was nice to see Ritlock come in the story as well. He did come in the first part of Out of the Shadows, and he was basically, telling stories of Air. It was really cool. One thing that I was surprised right off the bat when this entire episode began was the amount of dialogue, the amount of I wouldn't say ambient dialogue, but I'd say the amount of dialogue that was there while you were moving, and while you could look around, the amount of automatic dialogue between your character and between the people around you really surprised me. I mean, we knew this was going to be coming, and we saw it get started in Heart of Thorns, where there would be no more cutscenes and there'd be less clicking on dialogue boxes where you'd have to read, and there'd be more voice acting, but it just felt really nice, and it had such a smooth flow through the story, you know, as you're walking through air ceremony, you have people talking to you and you're talking back to them, and you can still walk around, and it makes it so much more immersive, I feel, that we don't have to interact with, you know, an NPC menu where we have select the dialogue option. I mean, there is still that, especially if you want the extra information, the extra dialogue, and the extra lore. Obviously that's still there, but for the main part of the story, everything seems to be automatic now, with as less menu options as possible and as less you know, just little cutscenes as possible. And I really like that. We also saw that the new guild that is forming for Destiny Edge 2.0, as many people have been calling it, is now called Dragon's Watch. I don't know how many of you picked that name. I don't even know if I picked that name. I think I picked that name because I like that name. I like the sound of it, so I think I did pick it in the poll that they created for all the players to vote in. And it's nice to see that we were able to make an impact in that. It's been such a long time since any of us have been able to make a decision in the game through a community poll or something like that. So it's nice to see that that was put in, and hopefully we'll get to have more of those little events where we get to choose what goes into the game, how things are named, or, you know, special decisions or events that happen. That'd be really cool. Now, apart from Air Ceremony, I guess there was lots of detail put into that with how you could honor her, and, you know, with all the NPCs around the area that you could talk to. But not just there, even if you go further into the story, you know, the second part of the episode, when you go into Taimi's, when you go to Taimi in Radanovis, there's so much detail there. There are a bunch of, you know, Asuras running around, and it's just so cool to see how the developers have put so much effort into the story and have, you know, put so much detail into this story that you can interact with everything. You can see everything that's happening very clearly, and you can see how characters interact with each other very clearly as well. And I really like that. I really like that, you know, we're able to, you know, talk to all the NPCs, get information from them, see what they have to say. And I really liked how, you know, there doesn't need to be a lot of fighting in these episodes. You know, this is heavily story driven. Now, you know, for the first 2 missions, there's barely any fighting. It's literally all story driven, where you talk to people, or you know, pick decisions or complete little tasks such as solving puzzles or finding items such as that. That's pretty much what the bulk of the first 2 parts of the episode is. But I don't mind that, you know. I don't mind that there's not a lot of fighting. I like how we're progressing through the story and able to talk to people and able to interact with different objects and, you know, solve puzzles. I like that type of thing. And, you know, I certainly don't have a problem with that. Now, obviously, later on towards the end of Out of the Shadows, there's a bit more fighting going on, and especially after you have to earn your mastery track for counter magic, you know, there's a bit more fighting. But I really liked how they transitioned from the beginning, which was very calm. Lots of it was, you know, passive dialogue based, story based, and then they transitioned over to a bit more of a combat based storyline, and I thought that was really cool. Now, as we expected, in Radanovis there are lots of Asura running around, and this is basically where Taimi has been studying in her Dragon's Lab. You know, all kinds of different things. She's been studying the Leyline energy map, she's been studying the chalk, and as we go there, one of the Bloodstone is actually flaring up. Now, I really like also how Taimi is very ambitious. She seems very ambitious, even though things may be dangerous, even though she's hiding it from the counselor. I just like the character development there. I like her character a lot. I like how they've, you know, brought her to life here, and it's just spot on. The personality is spot on. I feel like a lot of the dialogue is spot on for these characters. I can't really complain about much, and it's just really well done. Now, in the second portion of the story, you do have to fight some chalk, but for the most part, once again, like I said, lots of it is dialogue based, and it sort of pushes the story forward. Now, they do try to add as many characters as they can into this episode. Bram is not in the episode, and Lady Casimir is not into the episode, but it seems like pretty much everyone else is in the episode. Obviously, Zoja's not there, and Logan's not there because they're injured, I believe. But it seemed like they tried to fit as many people in as possible because Canuck was there, and then also Marjorie was there, which I didn't really see why she needed to be there, but she was there, and Taimi was there as well, and then our character was there. Even the Pact General was there too. That was nice to see. And essentially, you'll soon find out that Minister Caudecus, which is actually part of the Queensdale dungeon storyline, I believe. What's the dungeon called again? Caudecus's Manor. There we go. At the end of that storyline, we see that he's put under house arrest by Queen Jenna. Well, apparently he has disappeared, and that was really cool to me. I liked how they weren't afraid to take existing content in the game and use it for the storyline now in Living World Season 3. And when Canuck arrives, he gives us his information, and he's basically sent to find him. And after this event, we go to Bloodstone Fen. And basically, if you've played the story, you know that an explosion was reversed as we're traveling to Bloodstone Fen. There's a big explosion, but the explosion's reversed, and our airship and the player, and as well as most of the people on the ship, are okay. And the mystery now is, well, what is this reverse explosion? And we're basically introduced to Bloodstone Fen. Now, I've already gone over Bloodstone Fen. I've already given you my opinion on it. I do have a guide on the entire map if you want to check it out. I will leave a link and annotation as well as a card on screen right now. The map, like I said, the map aesthetically, I don't really like that much. I don't like dark areas much. I like, the nature-y areas such as Queensdale a bit more, or even Auric Basin. I like greeny areas. But the way the map functions, it's really well done. I love going to Bloodstone Fen. I love doing my dailies there. And, they do give you an opportunity to basically take a break and explore the map a bit, gain experience to level up your counter magic, and I thought that was done really well. You basically have to explore the map, find clues in the area, and then after that you're basically told to level up counter magic so you can progress the story, and I thought that transitioned really well too. Now, one thing that I didn't expect, and it seemed like a lot of people were worried about this, and I don't know if they, put this in the last second. At one point in the community, a lot of people were saying, raids are now at the center of attention, and there's story in those raids that people are missing out on because we're not doing raids, and we don't want to miss out on any of the story, and it feels like it's important information. And ArenaNet kept saying, no, you don't need to know this information. It's simply extra content that's not relevant to Living World Season 3. Well, what they've actually done, I guess, I don't know if it's to back up that, or if it's just a nice gesture to catch people up, but they've actually added an NPC. When you're doing Living World Season 3, there's an NPC that you talk to, which basically summarizes the raids for you. So if you haven't done the raids, this NPC actually summarizes everything that happened in these raids, and I thought that was a really cool addition because it does catch people up, and it's a pretty good summary of events that happen in the raid. So even if you're not doing raids and you still want that extra lore, that extra story, you are able to get a summary of it from the NPC. When you get to I think while you're exploring the map, you do run into this NPC, so you'll see him when you get to him, and when you talk to him, he'll definitely give you all the information you need. Now, one other thing that I did like a lot in this episode is that lots of Guild Wars 1 references were made, and I liked how they were able to connect things from Guild Wars 1 all the way into Guild Wars 2 again. And for me, I didn't play Guild Wars 1. I read up a lot about it. I understand lots about the story, but I know there are people out there who've played Guild Wars 1 and are diehard fans for the Guild Wars 2 series, and I feel like this episode was meant for them, because there are a lot of things that I learned from this episode that I didn't really know about, and I ended up looking up, and it was cool to see how they tied things together, and I feel like a lot of Guild Wars 1 players appreciate that. Obviously, I don't have that much appreciation for it because I didn't play Guild Wars 1, but after looking up some content on, you know, certain names that I ran into, or about the Mersat, or about the White Mantle, and reading up about them a bit more, I was really satisfied, and I felt like I had a really good understanding of, you know, how the story developed and how the two games tie together. And I feel like those of you who've played Guild Wars 1 have an even greater appreciation for this, because it is done really well, and it's pretty surprising that they were able to do this, because they haven't done much of it in Season 2, but now they're actually doing it a bit more, and hopefully they're able to continue that. Now in the story, we do get to meet Caithe again, and, you know, the big question that everyone had was Caithe gonna be this character that we were continuously going to have to decide whether we should trust her or not. And I felt like if that was something that was open in the air still, if she was still able not to be trusted, there could be more story, there could be more, you know, character development, there could be more to the plot. It seems like they kind of want to push that under the rug and say everything's okay now, because there is a point in the episode where she does apologize to us and try to explain to us why she did the things she did and how her mind wasn't stable. And while I appreciate them going to that extent to put that into the story, I feel like it would have been better if you know, she still was unsure about whether she should choose sides, if she still was in that gray area of, you know, being tied to Mordramoth somehow, or still not being completely you know, stable, and still having her own wild hunt to complete. I feel like there could have been drawn so many paths into, you know, a more elaborate story to have more character development, but, you know, they've decided to push under the rug, I guess, and make everything okay again with Caithe. I mean, it seems like our character, the player's character, is still not fully putting trust in her, and I could definitely sense that in the conversation they had, but it does seem like the goal is to gain her trust again so she can be part of the guild. And, you know, I don't have a problem with that. I just felt like they missed an opportunity there to, you know, add an extra plot line to the story. Maybe there are already enough plot lines, maybe they already have future plot lines that are already extensive enough and they have several paths to take, and that's why they're closing this one off. That could be possible, we don't know, we'll have to look and see what happens in future episodes. But here in this particular situation where we do meet Caithe, I feel like I said, you know, sometimes it feels like the ambient audio, or, you know, the character interaction, the dialogue that you get between characters while you're walking around sometimes can feel a bit weird, because while Caithe had this conversation with us, we were fighting, and it seemed kind of odd to hear this dialogue when we were fighting. I mean, it didn't even sound like they were in the middle of battle. You know, it's like I said earlier in the videos, you know, at certain points it feels very fitting to have this type of audio where it's just automatic, and in other places it seems kind of awkward because you're in the middle of, you know, fighting a ton of things, and then you hear Caithe and you talking in, you know, somewhat normal voices, and it just doesn't seem to fit that much. I mean, maybe this is something they can address or fix in the future, but I felt like that wasn't very fitting. You know, you can definitely see they tried to fit it in, you know, properly, but I still felt kind of odd having that, you know, play in the background while I'm trying to kill things and trying to, you know, find items to complete the objective. But anyhow, it seems like Caudecus has been reported to be around the Bloodstone Fen area, and apparently he seems to have absorbed all of the energy, perhaps. That's what the player is guessing. But it seems like Caudecus has absorbed all the energy from the reversed explosions that are happening in the area. So once we find this information, we are actually brought to the next part of the episode where we are trying to find Minister Caudecus, and we actually find out that he is the confessor of the White Mantle. He is the leader. He is the top person of the White Mantle, and I gotta say, this was completely unexpected. I mean, this is one of the surprises that really made me feel like, wow, they've really just done this. They've made Minister Caudecus be the confessor of the White Mantle, be the absolute supreme leader. and we find out that he wants the crown. And once again, you know, we have another great opening for a plot development here, where we have, you know, this faction of White Mantle, right? And then we have Caudecus being the leader of that. But then you're thinking, well, didn't the White Mantle, why are they, you know, looking up to Caudecus if they're still trying to revive the Mersat and, you know, their gods, the Mersat? So we'll get to that in just a second. But that's one thing that really surprised me, and I like that big surprise. Like, I liked how they weren't afraid to go to the extreme and say, okay, we're making this guy the confessor of the White Mantle, and we're making him want the crown of Caithe. It just was nice to see that ArenaNet wasn't afraid to go to the extreme, I guess. It was just a really interesting piece of story that they developed there, and you know, it really kept my attention. It really kept me drawn into the story. I know some people who play the game, they feel like there are certain points of the story that are kind of boring, especially in the personal story, but I felt like this episode here was very well done, and it kept me drawn into the story the entire time. And I feel like a lot of players will experience the same thing, especially if they've played the previous seasons. This episode does have a lot in it, and it has lots of cool parts in it, and it has lots of informative parts in it that will keep your attention on the story, and it will get you invested into it. And I think that's always good if a game has that. Now, surprisingly, like I said, the White Mantle are still trying to revive the Mersat gods, right? Well, an exciting thing that does happen in the episode is that Lazarus, the Mersat, comes alive, and he actually gives a nice small little monologue to Minister Caudecus, saying that, oh, you're not the leader, I am the god, I am the one the White Mantle look up to. Now, what I thought was going to happen is that everyone would team up together, and there will be this linear path story where, you know, Caudecus and the Mersat god and the White Mantle are all trying to take over Caithe, right? And while that's fine, it seems, you know, like I've already said, I like when games have several storylines, have several plot lines to follow. And surprisingly, ArenaNet did do what I wanted them to do, which was make as many plot lines as possible that are interesting plot lines. And what happens is that Lazarus, which is one of the Mersat gods that the White Mantle have been trying to, you know, bring back to life, actually kills the White Mantle in the area. Now, this was pretty surprising to me, because the White Mantle are the ones who've been worshipping the Mersat, trying to bring them back to life, and now that one of the Mersat gods is back to life, he basically kills the White Mantle that are in the area with Minister Caudecus. And this gets me to think, does that mean that the Mersat have a different goal from the White Mantle and Minister Caudecus? Because Minister Caudecus doesn't get killed. He actually escapes with the White Mantle. And the other thing that interests me is, why didn't the Mersat god Lazarus kill the player and kill us in the story? He only killed the White Mantle. Now, perhaps that could be seen as, hey, I have my own goal. And, you know, Lazarus does say that he has more virtuous pursuits to go after. Well, if he's going after more virtuous pursuits rather than going after the crown, that means Lazarus and the Mersat have a separate goal. However, Minister Caudecus and the White Mantle still have the goal of trying to get the crown of Caithe so they can rule the area. But on top of that, with these two interesting storylines already created for future episodes, there is another storyline that opens up near the end of this episode, and it's when Taimi comes on the radio and says that Prime Mortis is active. Now, this was a real huge shocker when when Taimi said that, I was like, what? Another Elder Dragon is active now? And it's not just the fact that it's another Elder Dragon that we have to deal with, but I liked how developers are now able to go in certain directions, in different directions. We're not just constantly going after the Elder Dragon as we did in the personal story, right? And we're not just going after, you know, 1 or 2 objectives as we did in Living World Season 2, or even Heart of Thorns, where we're just trying to, you know, kill Mordramoth. At least now in Living World Season 3, there are multiple storylines that we can follow. We can follow and deal with the Mersat, and maybe they have a goal. And speaking of them having a goal, maybe they have a common goal that we have, because that could explain why they didn't kill us. I mean, why else would Lazarus not kill us but kill the White Mantle? Is it because he believes that we can help stop Primordus? Is it because he believes that the evil that is about to rise is powerful and he needs our help? Maybe is it because he believes in us that we could stop the dragon while the Mersat are trying to, you know, deal with something else? I mean, I don't know. We have to see what happens. Lots of speculation that you could possibly draw from this, though. But why else would he not kill us? Why would he only kill the White Mantle in the area? To prove a point that, hey, I don't really care about you guys anymore. I have my own goal. I have my own agenda. So whatever. And he basically just leaves. But it was just such a great ending to the episode. And, you know, historically speaking, what I've read is that the Mersat were never really considered evil and were never really considered good. They were always considered to be in between. You know, just like what I wanted to happen with Caithe. What I wanted to happen with Caithe was that she'd be sort of in this gray area where she wasn't considered to be evil or good, and we sort of had to think about whether we should trust her. Well, it seems like this is the situation that we're in now with the Mersat. Should we trust him? Should we not trust him? Maybe, I mean, he did kill all the White Mantle, and this is something that the Mersat were always historically like. They were always historically in that gray area of, you know, are they evil? Are they good? They just have their own goal and own agenda. Part of that lore is still being brought into Guild Wars 2 today. And, you know, once again, like I said, a lot of the Guild Wars 1 players will appreciate this. And, you know, after reading a lot on the wiki and, you know, reading about the Mersat, this is something that I can definitely understand as well, and I guess I have appreciation for as well. And it's great to see that, you know, developers are able to, you know, like I said earlier, tie together these 2 games and not forget about the Guild Wars 1 lore. So overall, it was a great ending to Out of the Shadows. It was a pretty exciting episode, especially if you're someone who's been following the story very accurately, or you've been following it, you know, very precisely, then I think this is something that would please you a lot. There are journal entries that you could also pick up in Bloodstone Fen. Yes, they do give you a new gobbler for Dragonite Ore and Bloodstone Dust, but they also do give you lots of lore, and if you're someone who's into the lore a lot, then I think this episode, Out of the Shadows, has a lot to please you. Not only the journals, but a lot of the references made to Guild Wars 1, a lot of the things that happen in the story, you can connect back to Guild Wars 1, and I think it's just really well done. And even if you're someone who's not really into the lore and you haven't played too much of Guild Wars 2, or you haven't followed the story too much, I feel like it still does a good job at catching players up and not being completely lost. I mean, as you enter Out of the Shadows, I mean, you are told that, you know, Air was a great person, but she died. I mean, you're not just thrown into there and you're like, oh, who's Air? I mean, you are informed about her childhood. You do have the option to learn about her. And, you know, like I said, if you haven't done the raids, you're given the option to learn about the raids. And, you know, it's not something that, you know, players are just thrown in and they don't know what's going on. I feel like the episode starts very well on a note that isn't too hectic, that doesn't just throw players in and they're completely confused of what's happening. I think it starts on a really good note, and I think it ends on an even better note by, you know, leaving us with questions, leaving us with speculation, and sort of like this TV show cliffhanger. I like that about this episode. It's just really well written, it's really well produced, and I feel like in general the episode was just great. So that's sort of my opinion, that's sort of my thoughts, and, you know, maybe like half of a summary. I didn't go over everything. I just went over, you know, some of the main points that I wanted to talk about, some of the main points that happened in the story. But let me know your opinions for Out of the Shadows Episode 1 in Living World Season 3. I'll definitely be down there in the comments section reading your opinions. If I messed up on something, which I might have, because, you know, I'm not a huge lore nerd. I don't know everything about Guild Wars 2, but I do understand most of it. If I messed up on something, if you want to add something that's pretty interesting that you noticed in the story, definitely leave a comment below. I'll definitely be interested in reading any comments you have, any connections that you saw, any interesting references that you saw. Leave them in the comments section. And if you're interested in that type of stuff, make sure you look in the comments section, because I'm sure there will be people down there commenting with such content. So if you liked the video, go and give it a like. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, go and subscribe. Plenty of the Guild Wars 2 content on our channel. Lots of videos like these where we just talk about the game, where we talk about the story, or we talk about news. I also have lots of guides on the channel about Guild Wars 2, how to create your ascended gear, how to do fractals. I also do coverage for all the new patches and go over that, give you recaps of that. So if you're interested in any of that, go and subscribe. If you're a Guild Wars 2 player, you can also donate $8 to my Patreon page. Anything as low as that is very helpful, very much appreciated. All you gotta do is click the card on the top right hand corner of the screen and it'll bring you to the page. And if you want to check out my tutorials channel, my vlogging channel, music channel, or advice channel, you can do that as well by clicking the annotations at the end, as well as links in the description. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching as always. And this is GSmaniamsmart, and I'll be back sooner than you think. Don't go anywhere.